What's up, everybody? This is the Pistons Talk podcast. You know who I am. I'm Lance Caparosi. Follow me on Twitter at Lance Caparosi. You know Anthony at Pistons Talk. And seriously, put your hands together. We can't hear you clapping, though. But we got Mike Curtis, the new beat writer for the Detroit News, on the podcast today. Mike, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Thanks a lot for having me, guys. Really, just being the kind of the new guy on the beat. It's pretty cool to just put myself out there and get introduced to the fans.
Oh, absolutely, man. We're excited to have you on. So we got to get to know you, though, a little bit. You know, Mike, I kind of feel since you're new to the Detroit scene, not many people know who you are. So let's get into this, man. Like, what were you doing before the Detroit News?
Yeah, for sure. So I spent the last 3.5 years of my career in Syracuse, New York. It was very cold, but it was a really fun experience covering. I started off covering high school sports, and then during the pandemic, the workflow kind of shifted. So that allowed me to kind of cover colleges. So I did men's basketball, women's basketball, football, recruiting, pretty much a little bit of everything. But it was a really fun experience, and it prepared me for this level here.
So, like, what were the highs and the lows of, being in Syracuse and covering, high school sports, then college sports? Like, what are some of your favorite moments and some of your worst moments of doing that job?
Yeah, for sure. If I had to pick, I guess the best moments, I think they came over the last year. I was able to build a really good relationship with one of Syracuse's main boosters. And through that, this guy, his name is Adam Weissman. He owns a garbage. He's a scrap metal king, as they say. So he made his fortune doing scrap metal, and he brought a bunch of basically celebrities and NBA players to Syracuse games just because he wants to show off, I guess, the beauty of Syracuse, because not a lot of people get a chance to go up to upstate New York. So he brought Giannis Antetokounmpo and his older brother Thanasis. I was able to kind of talk to those guys during halftime of a game. He brought Allen Iverson, which was really cool.
Wow.
That was one of my favorite players growing up. So just talking to him just about the game and the old Syracuse-Georgetown rivalries, that was pretty cool. And he also brought Pete Davidson during a time where Pete Davidson was going through a bunch of personal stuff. So It was a pretty fun time.
So that's pretty cool, man. Like going from Syracuse to now, were there any other stops before you got to Detroit after Syracuse, or is this your second and potentially final stop? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I will say this is a dream job for me. I've always wanted to cover the NBA. I got my bachelor's degree at Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee. So if you see me wearing a lot of Nashville stuff or tweeting about Nashville is like my second home. Like my mom is still there. So after Nashville, I spent the summer in Knoxville, Tennessee, and covered pretty much. I interned with the Knoxville News Sentinel through this amazing program called SJI. It's a sports journalism institute. It helps minority journalists basically get into newsrooms. So without that program, I wouldn't be where I am now. And then that fall, I got the job in Syracuse, and the rest is history.
So, I know how beat writers, you guys aren't, fans of the teams you're covering. So, how do you balance that line between being a fan of the NBA and being a journalist?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I always, especially me being new to the beat, I know I said that I grew up watching the Pistons. And I did, but I think that kind of fandom went away from me probably when I moved to Nashville, and also when Chauncey Billups got traded to the Denver Nuggets.
Okay.
So I kind of severed ties with the Pistons fandom, which I think worked out pretty well for me because now I can objectively cover it as a journalist. But one thing about me, I'm gonna tell you when the Pistons are doing good, and I'm gonna tell you why they're doing good. But I'm also gonna tell you when they're doing bad, or if they suck, or if they're not shooting the ball well, or turning it over. But I'm also going to be able to explain why. So I'm always going to be fair. One thing about me in my coverage. So I think that's pretty much how I toe the line.
That's awesome, man. And that's kind of interesting, though. Like, once Chauncey Billups goes away, you're like, man, I'm done with this team. Like, I'm good. I don't want to watch him anymore. That was my guy. even though you got to meet Allen Iverson, was he kind of a big influence of yours growing up? Like, who was the player? I guess I want to know, like, what player made you want to become a sports journalist?
Yeah, I wouldn't say a specific player made me want to become a sports journalist because I always loved writing and I always loved the NBA. So after my freshman year at TSU, I pretty much said, let me combine those two passions and kind of pursue this thing head on. But like growing up, I would say Allen Iverson was definitely one of them. Dwayne Wade, I remember watching him in the '06 finals, became a real big fan of D Wade back then. Um, you can throw Jordan in there too. Like I was born in '91, so that's when he was really starting to go on his run with the Bulls. So I didn't get to see much of Jordan, but I definitely regard him as one of the best players to ever play this game. Um, and I'm all about the guards. So you noticed I mentioned a lot of the shorter guys, but if I had to throw some forwards and centers in there, I would go Shaq, of course, KG, Kevin Garnett, and Tim Duncan. Like those are probably three of the most my favorite big men growing up.
It's kind of crazy that we're in an era where you have to tell people who KG is, because I know the moment you say KG, I'm like, dude, Kevin Garnett. But there are people out there that are like, who is KG? And that's crazy that we're in a different time, man. He's the big ticket.
So, nowadays, I think you say Melo, and people think you're talking about Carmelo Anthony, but you could also be talking about LaMelo Ball.
Yup, exactly. And I just almost called him LaMelo Anthony. I do not know, why, but you're absolutely right, man. When people say Melo, they think of two different types of players. But, man, before you got on, we were talking a little bit about the Rico Hines footage. And, Anthony, I'm going to turn it over to you because I've been talking all the time. Do you guys think we're going to see the Rico Hines footage at all?
I personally don't. I think Troy burned the tape, like straight up. One of my friends is Casey Athena, who's a photographer, and she sent me a bunch of pictures of all the Pistons down there, and I posted 2 of them, and people ran with it, and they just posted it. I was like, that's it, I'm not posting it. I got like 500 pictures of the Pistons down there, like all of them, like everyone from Killian to Corey Joseph is out there. That was out there. But I think Troy's the type of GM that doesn't want his players getting exposure. I mean, we didn't even see like pre-draft workouts tweeted out from the Pistons. So like, why are we going to see like workouts of Rico Hines? But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, Mike, what about you? What do you think? What's your take on this Rico Hines stuff? Because, there are fans that want to see the footage. They want to see the pictures. But like, what's your take and why we're not seeing it?
That's a pretty good question. I think anytime there's a summer league or summer run, they like to keep those things under wraps because you don't want it. I guess they don't want the public to see what they're working on or what they're trying to get better at. I was just at Hamidou Diallo's basketball camp last week, and I asked him specifically what he was working on, and he kept it really vague and told me a little bit of everything. So I think that's part of it, but I also would love to talk to someone and who was there and get a little bit of insight of what went on, who looked good, who should we be expecting to have a breakout season, because NBA fans, like, we love watching the game. Like when we see these NBA players at Drew League, specifically like LeBron and DeMar DeRozan coming out, like it's enjoyable because we just love the game of basketball.
Yeah, and it's cool when you get to see him in like these summer pro-ams because you're seeing some of these guys do things like take over games that you're going to see another, I guess, like a level to their game that you're not going to see in the NBA because everybody plays a role for a team. But it's kind of cool seeing someone like Peyton Pritchard drop, what was it, like 98 points or something in a pro-am game. It's just, okay, his career high might be 20 one day, but I'll never be close to that. But just to see what he can do, in a pro-am is really, I think it's fascinating stuff. And I got to see, Anthony shared with me some of those photos, and yeah, I got to admit, it was pretty cool. And I wish I could see, all of it. I wish I could see the clips in the videos, but unfortunately, I think, Anthony's right. Troy Weaver's like, nope. It's kind of like LeBron James getting dunked on by Jordan Crawford. The tape just magically disappeared, so Troy Weaver probably cut from the same cloth that way. But we can move on here. We're going to do news. And with news, we're just bringing you guys headlines. And, some of you might have missed during the week, maybe some news that popped off today before we recorded. But we're going to talk about the news, share our thoughts if we have any, and then we'll move on. So the Detroit Pistons will play the New York Knicks to start the preseason. I'm kind of sad because I wish this game was in Detroit so I could actually see Mitchell Robinson in Detroit, but I won't get that this year unless, during the regular season I will, but that preseason I would have loved to see him. But like, what do you got? What should fans be looking for from the preseason? And Mike, I'll let you start this one off.
Yeah, for sure. I think first off, they're going to want to see how Ivy is doing. Last time we saw Jaden Ivey, obviously he limped off in the second game of Summer League. So they're probably going to want to see if he still has that explosiveness, which I'm sure he does. It was just an ankle injury, so there shouldn't be too much to worry about. But according to Jalen Rose, he said Ivy's been making everything in practice. So I'm interested in seeing what his shot is going to look like and how comfortable he is in the offense next to Cade Cunningham. I also want to see how Duren is going to be playing and how he's going to fit into that bevy of just big men that Detroit has, along with Marvin Bagley, Kelly Olynyk. Just kind of see what role he's going to have fitting into that nucleus. But also, how are they going to defend? The Knicks, they're coming in with a new point guard and Jalen Brunson. So I'm interested in seeing like how they're going to manage him defensively.
Those are some good things to watch for. Anthony, what about you? What do you think fans should be looking for from preseason?
Cheap Pistons tickets. Straight up. Like, honestly, like tickets have gone up so much now. Honestly, to Mike's point, definitely want to see Ivy and Cade because Jalen Rose is basically saying they're the second best backcourt, but that's just Jalen Rose hyping up the Pistons. You know how he is, but yeah, I want to see Ivy. I want to see Cade. I want to see your boy Isaiah Livers.
Same.
There's a lot of Isaiah Livers hype coming out, and not to toot my own horn, but I did, kind of project that starting lineup of him being in there. So I definitely think he could be next to Sadiq in the starting lineup.
Oh, no, you definitely need to toot your own horn because you were the first person I knew that was saying that. So, yeah, toot away, man. Like, I'll even turn up the speakers for you so everybody can hear it. But, yeah, for me, like, this preseason, I'm looking for, like what Mike said, I'm looking for the defense. I want to see them take that next step. I want to see someone, whether it's Isaiah Livers or maybe Isaiah Stewart, one of those guys being more of a vocal leader, especially on the defense side. That's something we haven't seen or really haven't had. I mean, Kelly Olynyk, I guess, was doing a little bit before, he got hurt when he came back. But, that's something I'm looking for, just how these guys communicate with each other on the floor. I'm interested in seeing what kind of lineups they're going to play. I know preseason, isn't usually the best indication for lineups because you're going to be trying so many different lineups and different players out and everything. But I'm going to be looking for who I think the core are going to be and how they play together. And then I think really I'm going to be looking for, or what fans should be watching for, is just like some of these veterans and how they're interacting with the young guys, because we're going to see the veterans we have on this team play big minutes, I believe, with some of these young guys. So the first preseason game, those are what I'm watching for, just those three things, communication, how they play defense, and just some of these lineups and see how these veterans and these young guys gel together.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned communication because that's one of the biggest things that we saw from Isaiah Livers in Summer League.
Yep.
And when he was asked about it, he kind of gave the ode to Juwan Howard when he was at Michigan. He said that's something like he's been doing since college. So it was kind of good to see that in Summer League.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, we're going to get into some more Isaiah Livers talk as we go on with the podcast. But, yeah, he looks like it just looks like there's a whole nother level to his game. Like, he looks like the complete package that he was at the University of Michigan. He looked that way in Summer League. So I'm definitely excited for Isaiah Livers. But, Mike, you're going to be real familiar with this next topic because I took this tweet from you. The Pistons will unveil a new jersey next month that was designed by Big Sean. According to his Instagram page, it will be a whole new look. Personally, I'm not that excited for this jersey because me and Anthony were talking about it earlier, the jersey he released last year, but Anthony pointed out that Bleacher Report didn't give him full control. But I didn't like that jersey. I thought it was kind of an eyesore, to be perfectly honest with you. I just thought it was something you could get at TJ Maxx, some that somebody just threw together and doesn't have a real player's name on the back. That was something that just looked bad to me. But, Mike, have you seen these jerseys?
I have not seen these jerseys.
Okay,
Um,
dang. Do you think you'll be able to see them before they're released?
I sure hope so. I hope I can provide some insight on what they look like, the history behind it, the design. Hopefully, I'm able to break some news about that pretty soon.
Awesome.
It's
Well,
so interesting because I noticed when I put that tweet out, I think Big Sean actually went and edited that post because it originally said next month, it said
Yeah.
September, but then he edited to say October. So
Yeah, he did edit it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay. I didn't notice that. Yeah, I was going by your tweet, and that's it. I didn't go and check out the Instagram page. But are you guys excited for the new jersey? Because I heard we're getting like 5 new alternate jerseys this year, but the Big Sean collaboration, how do you guys feel about that? And Anthony, you can go first if you want. So,
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I feel like when you unveil the teal, that's all fans are going to care about.
yep.
Like, I feel like if they would have waited a year, maybe you get more hype with it. But I know, he said he was going to drop it in 2023. I just hope it's a little bit more creative than recent years with racing stripes down the middle, or just like the gray jerseys. I'm so glad they're gone. There's just an eyesore. But I mean, I don't know. I'm happy for the teal personally. I could kind of care less about the Big Sean jerseys.
Honestly, I was pretty excited when, Big Sean was collaborating with Detroit. I thought it was kind of cool to have like a Detroit icon, mixing it up with the Pistons. I was real excited for it, but I'm just not as excited for it. But Mike, like, what about you? What are your expectations for this jersey?
Yeah, I'm a big jersey guy, so I pay attention to small details, the big details. We noticed that they took the DP off the shorts and they replaced it with the Pistons logo with the basketball. So that's just one of the small details I noticed. But as far as this jersey, I think it should definitely not be gray. Hopefully, they've learned their lesson from that. But as far as the teals, I'm a big fan of teal. I grew up in the 90s, so that was pretty much all I saw growing up. But I understand how a lot of Pistons fans kind of associate that team and that time, that era with when they weren't competing for championships. But I think it's really an age thing with the teal. Like, I think everyone 30 and under, they appreciate the nostalgia that it brings.
Yeah, people at my work are a bunch of 50-year-old boomers. Like, we weren't winning. I'm like, dude, we were still making the playoffs. Like, stop. Like, I was born in 92, so I grew up on the Grandel era. I mean, they were still winning. They're still winning 40 games. But I don't know. I love the teal. I love like the Vancouver Grizzlies teal. I love the Toronto Raptors. Like all the 90s throwbacks. I absolutely love.
Charlotte Hornets were my favorite with those pinstripes. Those were so clean. Those are my absolute favorite jerseys. But Mike, so you're a big jersey guy. How many jerseys you got in your closet?
Probably 8 or so. I used to have way more when I was a kid. Like, I used to wear them to school pretty much every day. Let me see. I think my favorite one, if I had to pick right now, it would be a Tennessee State jersey that I got at homecoming last year. And that's something that I'll be able to wear pretty often. So I'm looking forward to that.
So I remember one of my first jerseys I ever got as a kid. It wasn't a Detroit Pistons jersey. It was a Shaquille O'Neal jersey. It was a reversible one, so it could be purple or gold. I'm at a basketball camp. I'm shooting free throws. Like, I think we're playing Thunder and Lightning or whatever. Dude, this is how like sensitive I was back in the day. Like, I used to get like real upset when someone would make fun of me. I make a free throw and I'm going to get the ball and throwing it back. And this kid's like, by the way, your jersey's not real. And I just remember I was in shambles after this. Like, I'm playing Thunder and Lightning. He's like, that's not what they look like. I can prove it to you, because it didn't have like the purple on the sides or something. I have no idea. And then some of the kids were making fun of my mom for buying me a knockoff jersey. And I'm just thinking, dude, I don't need this as a kid. Like, the jersey game is real, man.
That happened with me too. My first jersey was actually Tracy McGrady, an Orlando Magic jersey. And you know how the replicas, they pretty much are screen printed on, so they're not stitched. Anytime you saw someone with those jerseys on, you were hearing it like at my school growing up.
Yeah.
So I definitely can relate.
I'm glad someone else has shared my pain and my embarrassment as a kid. That's awesome, Mike. I appreciate that. All right, so the Motor City Cruise traded Chake Diallo in 2023. G League first-round pick. Had no idea they did a draft to the Sioux Falls for Micah Potter. Do you guys think we'll see Micah Potter in Detroit playing for the Pistons this season? Oh, whoever wants to go, feel free.
You can go, Mike.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting, especially since the Pistons already have two guys on two-way contracts, in Braxton Key and Buddy Boeheim. I think if anything, we'll see one of those players first, especially if there's an injury or a hit to the roster where they need guys to suit up. So it's interesting. I know Michael Potter, he averaged 17 and almost 10 in the G League last season. So those are pretty good numbers. I'm pretty sure they could use someone who can go get you 10 rebounds, but who knows if that translates to the NBA level. But I think we'll see. I think it's safe to say we'll see the two-way guys before we probably see Micah.
Yeah, if we're seeing Micah, there's something going on with this roster, like injuries. Some guys aren't working out. It would be, I don't know, probably not the most exciting. I mean, I shouldn't say it wouldn't be exciting. I get excited for G League guys when they get called up. Like, I hope Micah Potter is a star in the making, and just, maybe the next Kelly Olynyk or whatever. But Anthony, what about you? You think we'll see Micah Potter this year for the Detroit Pistons?
I think it's just going to be a training camp body and just a G League guy, honestly. Like, I'm kind of a sicko, and I kind of like watched the G League draft because I was bored, just to kind of like see how it was. And trust me, it's boring. But I mean, like, shout out to Rob Murphy, by the way, that does, do the G League and the Pistons, new GM. But yeah, man, I don't know. I just like G League guys like that. Like, I was, what was the guy last year? I can't remember. Jamarco Pickett. Like, I thought Jamarco Pickett was going to be something. I was dead wrong. Like, Pistons fans have been doing this for like years. Like, we thought Jordan Bone was going to be something, and he was just a G League guy.
Oh, I remember when you came on the podcast like a long before we started doing this, and we were talking about Jordan Bone. I remember you being like, "Dude, honestly, he's a G League guy. I have no idea. I don't think he even plays." And I think he got traded like 6 minutes later. It was amazing, but yeah, Micah Potter. Like, I don't really know too much about him. I don't know. He's like 6'10". He's a big man. Like Mike was pointing out, 17 at 10, I guess, last year. I think he can shoot outside. Maybe that's why they're bringing in like a 5 that can stretch the floor a little bit because we don't have enough shooting. So I don't know, but I don't even know if we'll see Micah Potter or not at all, but who knows? It's just interest. I don't know why, but like it's G League news and it is a Pistons podcast. So we're talking about it, but again, I didn't even know they could trade picks and stuff for the G League. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, that's how you know we're in the dog days of the summer.
Yeah.
It's gym highlights and basically G League news or anything you can like literally find right now. It's pretty desperate. I mean, fans are arguing if Cade's better than Scotty Barnes still over Rookie of the Year. So I mean, it's it's something.
How hard is it for you to do your job in the off season though? Like when there's not much going on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So with me being new to town, I think I'm pretty much working every day just because I'm trying to learn as much about the team as possible. I think Summer League was a really good start for me because it gave me an opportunity to see guys play in real time. I wasn't at Summer League in Vegas. Rob Beard was. He was there kind of taking everything in from that level, and I was in Syracuse watching it remotely. So I got to see the guys getting interviewed. I saw Marvin Bagley getting interviewed. I saw Cade getting interviewed. The interviews with Dwayne Casey, of course. So that was a pretty good way for me to kind of like get immersed. But yeah, you said it. When it's the off season, it's stories and news is kind of few and far between. So when you get a chance to go to one of those Jalen Rose celebrity golf tournaments or a basketball camp like Hami's, I think it's pretty cool. Like that's kind of the content that I've been doing so far.
So I got to ask you one more question. Are there any players on the team that you're excited to potentially interview for like an article or anything? Like who's on your short list of guys you'd like to interview from this team?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would have to say Isaiah Stewart, and I think it's because he has the upstate New York ties.
Yeah,
he's from Rochester, New York. So I think if I had to pick anyone, it would be him. And I hear he's a really, really good interview.
Yeah, he seems like he has a pretty decent personality, and I think I don't know if we get to see that enough from him, just because he seems kind of like a quiet NBA player too. But I think there's something to him where he's probably a real down to earth guy, and I think he'd probably be pretty fun to talk to. So it's a good name drop right there.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move on, but we got expectations for Isaiah Livers this season. This is a fun one for me. I'm from Kalamazoo. I probably say this once a day, once on this podcast every time we record, that I'm from the same city as Isaiah Livers. That's why I'm rooting for him. But Mike, I'm going to turn over to you first. What do you think his role will be this season for the Detroit Pistons?
Yeah, it's a really good question. He was arguably their best shooter from deep last season, 42% from three. I think he's pretty much going to be a 3 and deep guy for sure. We saw his defensive intensity in summer league. I remember he had a wild chase down block in one of those games.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he did.
So I think he's going to be competing for minutes primarily against Hamidou and likely Alec Burks. So I think we'll kind of see that matchup play out probably in training camp. But I think it's going to be hard to not put him on the floor. Like he's been working in the offseason. Like I've seen clips of him working on his handle, working on his mid-range shot. So I think I have large expectations for Isaiah Livers.
Anthony, what about you? What do you think his role will be?
Like I said, I think he's going to be a starting, 3 or 4. I mean, whatever. If you want to put Sadiq at the 4, you can. Yeah. I mean, he kind of had some of his best games at the 4 last year. You could put Livers at the 3. I think they're interchangeable, but I think he could probably average around like 12 points, 3 or 4 rebounds, shoot around 40% from 3. And I think Coach Casey would love a kid like him just because he's a communicator. Like, I'm not going to repeat the profanity that he said, during the summer league, but man, he was talking a lot of crap. So like these like little like G leaguers and, first year players. But I mean, he's the type of player I think a lot of Pistons fans are going to love because, he's from Michigan, he hustles out there and he just gives 110%. And that's all really Pistons fans care about.
Dude, 100%. I think his role in this team is, 3 and D. I think I'm with Anthony. I think he's going to be a starter. I've compared him to Shane Battier. Shane Battier was a guy that was a connective piece, a communicator, playmaker, could hit open shots, and just a guy you want on your team if you want to win. And I've said it already, I think he's going to be a reliable catch and shoot player. What I love about his game is the dude just doesn't stand still. Like that's one big thing I love of Isaiah Livers' game. He's always relocating along the perimeter, trying to find those open holes in the defense to get an easy shot and communicating. We mentioned that earlier in the podcast, and Anthony was just talking about it as well. Like the dude talks. Like I love seeing him out there directing people, whether it's on offense or on defense, just telling people where they need to be, where their spots are going to be, calling out screens. Like that is so huge. And we have not had that on the Pistons at all last season. So I'm excited for him in that role. But Mike, because I know Anthony's answer to this question is, but do you see Isaiah Livers as a starter this season?
As a starter, that's a really good. Whew. All right, so let's see. We're gonna have likely Cade.
Yep.
Either Jaden or Killian, depending on how that works out, that position battle. We could have Alec Burks, or we could have Isaiah Livers at the 3. They could go with Marvin Bagley will likely play the 5, and then you'll have Isaiah Stewart at the 4. Or Sadiq. I'm sorry.
I was going to say
Sadiq at the 4. I forgot. But yeah, I think if as long as he's putting in the work, he'll definitely have an opportunity to crack that starting lineup some point during the season. I'm not sure if it'll be opening night. It could be, but I'm pretty sure we'll see him start a few games this season.
Since we're on the topic of Isaiah Livers, what has been the most impressive thing about his game? What has impressed you most about his game?
I would say a shot. It's pure. He has a nice form. When he gets set, you pretty much can think it's going or assume that it's going to go in. And that even when he misses, he's not getting down about it. He's on to the next shot. I think his confidence is really good too. So I would just say a shoot.
What about you, Anthony? What are you I love hearing people praise Isaiah Livers. That's why I'm asking you. What have you been most impressed with about his game?
This is our 9th episode, and you mention him every time. So
Every time.
I told you I'm going to start drinking every time you mention his name. But honestly, like if you kind of look at the value of him when he did get drafted, obviously he did get injured. I think he's a first-round draft pick if he doesn't get injured, and I think the Pistons were very fortunate to get him. I think at 42, if memory serves correct. But I mean, I just kind of look at our offense and how bad of a three-point shooting team we were last year. And having a player of his caliber in the starting lineup, to me, does provide you with more three-point shooting. I know some people say, they're too small. They're going to get killed on the glass. But, I mean, you kind of have to pick your poison with this team and the way the roster's constructed right now. Unless Troy is going to trade Kimba because he's still on the roster for some reason, and I don't get why. That's a question I did want to ask, because is he getting bought out? Because I have read reports that he's getting bought out, and then I see today that the Charlotte Hornets may want to add him to the roster.
Yeah, I don't have any answers in regards to Kimba.
Okay.
I will say that, but it is interesting how we haven't heard anything about that situation just yet, because he was definitely brought over from New York. I feel like New York traded half of their team to the Pistons.
Yeah,
but it's going to be interesting to see where he does end up landing, because Detroit right now, they have a lot of guards, and one guy we haven't even mentioned is Saben Lee. He's also still on the team too, so it'll be interesting to see how many minutes he gets in that rotation.
Yeah. So speaking of Saben Lee, do you see him making this roster, or do you think, like, what are your thoughts on him as a player? Because we are pretty loaded in the backcourt.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's a pretty good player, but he also has a tendency to kind of over dribble and kind of force things at times. So we saw him in summer league before he suffered an ankle injury as well. And he looked pretty good for the most part when he was on the floor. But I think he just needs to be a little bit more patient.
Dude, 100%. And I think too with Saben Lee, it's just more of a confidence thing, like figuring out what he can do at the NBA level. Because in the G League, he's just too athletic for everybody. They can't stay in front of him. But at the NBA, you got more athletes like him. So I think the biggest knock on his game is just trying to figure out what he can get away with in the NBA and what works for him. So, but I like Saben Lee. I mean, I'm excited about him. I love when he gets that open look and tries to dunk it on everybody. It's pretty cool, but, got a loaded backcourt, so we'll see. But speaking of the backcourt, we got Jaden Ivey. Last year was the first time I've been a Pistons fan where I've been able to root for a rookie to actually win Rookie of the Year. It's unbelievable that it took. I'm 31, and I have never seen a Detroit Pistons rookie compete for Rookie of the Year. But we got another guy in Jaden Ivey that might have a chance. So are we going to push the Jaden Ivey for Rookie of the Year agenda this year harder than we did for Cade? Anthony, I'll let you take over first.
Yeah, you guys probably will, but to me, I don't really care if Jaden Ivey wins it personally. Like, I think Keegan Murray's going to win it because apparently you have to win now to be Rookie of the Year. I guess it's like a new requirement they have, which I didn't get the newsletter. But honestly, like, if he just produces, I could care less if he's Rookie of the Year. Like, that's all I care about. Like, if you can produce, you show that you're one of the best players in the draft. I'm not going to even get into those conversations because it's already starting. I saw a post today. Cade's making the All-Star team and Jaden Ivey's winning Rookie of the Year. It's just like, you guys got to lower your expectations. It's hard to win in the NBA when you're 20 years old. Like, some people think we're going to be a 6 seed. I'm just like, dude, like, maybe a play-in team if everything, turns out right. But I could really, care less. I want Jaden to be successful, and if he produces, I'm happy.
So you're not pushing the agenda for
no. I'm not even going to get into that rabbit hole with Pistons fans on Twitter because it's just toxic.
I got you. What about you, Mike? I guess it's kind of tougher for you to answer because you have to be, you're the beat writer for the Pistons, so you can't be like the fan for the Pistons. But like, do you think, or maybe I should ask you, do you think fans will push this agenda harder than they did for Cade last year?
I think it's very possible, especially with the loss of Chet Holmgren for the year. I saw a stat, or I tweeted this out, that Jaden is now, I guess, the second favorite. He's tied with Keegan Murray to win Rookie of the Year. Obviously, first is Paolo Banchero, but I'm interested. I can't wait to see that matchup I know they're not going to be guarding each other, but I'm interested in seeing what Jaden does opening night versus what Paolo does opening night. Because they're two electric rookies. And, had Paolo played or Jaden played in that summer league game, I think that would have been one of the most entertaining summer league games we saw. But I am interested in seeing like how he fits in with Cade Cunningham, like when he's going to choose to attack the rim, go for his own shot, when he's going to choose to kind of like slow things down and facilitate the offense. And I think that's the really good thing about having two guards like Cade and Jaden that kind of complement each other. I think Cade's going to take a big step in his scoring this year just because Jeremy Grant no longer with the team.
Yeah.
He'll have a little bit more freedom to kind of do what he wants out there.
So do you like the matchup? Do you like the court of Jaden and Ivy? Do you think those two fit well together?
Yeah, I do. Because and this is why I think Cade has the ability to either get his teammates involved. He can keep the ball for himself, drive to the hole, score there. His shot is still developing, but I expect that to get better as he kind of progresses in the league. And then with Ivy, like his explosiveness, he can rise. We saw that at Purdue. We saw that a little bit in summer league. I remember that step back 3-pointer that he hit. I think that was against the Wizards in that first quarter before he got hurt. So I think they'll definitely mesh well, but they'll have to pick and choose when they want to kind of like just run their offense.
100%. I got a question for you though. We were talking about this on last week's podcast. I'm not going to get into option talk or anything like that, but you've been covering sports for a while now. Do you think there needs to be you think there needs to be a hierarchy in sports in order for it to succeed? Because I've seen some people say, who cares who gets the ball? Who cares who takes the shots? I tend to disagree. But do you think there needs to be like a hierarchy? Like there has to be, this guy's the clear-cut franchise, this guy's number 2, number 3, or whatever the order is. But what are your thoughts on the hierarchy on a team?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a semi-easy example, and that's the Big Three, Miami Heat. We all saw what happened in 2011 when they were still trying to figure it out between LeBron and D Wade. At times they lost. They didn't know who wanted to be the guy. But during that offseason, after they lost to the Mavericks, like D Wade had to pull LeBron and say, hey, you're the man. Go be the man. This is why we brought you here. And I think they thrived after that conversation. Obviously, they went on to win 2 championships. But I think there has to be a clear-cut guy that's going to take the shot at the end, or not even take the shot as long as he's making a play. He doesn't have to take the shot. He can facilitate, like draw defenders and kick it to who's open. So I think there does need to be that established player.
I agree with you. And that was like my big thing last week because I was getting it was about Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. Like, can they coexist if one is number 1 and number 2, or do we even need them to be a 1 and 2? And I always compare it to Jordan and Pippen. Like, you knew Jordan was the alpha, and if Scottie Pippen wanted to be the number 1, we wouldn't have gotten that elite defensive playmaker on that side, one of the greatest ever on that side of the ball, being able to lock down anybody 1 through 3. We would not have gotten that version of Scottie Pippen if he was the number 1 option. So I think the same thing with these guys. But I know you have only a little bit of time with us, but how do you think Jaden Ivey's season goes? Like, what are your expectations for him as a rookie? Like, what do you think his stats are going to be? Just give me something about Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. Depending on where he falls into the rotation, if he's coming off the bench for some reason or if he's starting, I think that'll be a big determining factor for his stats. But I expect him to do well. I expect him to go through a lot of growing pains as rookies do, often do. And I think we're going to see him maybe average about 13, 14 points per game. I think that'll be a good place for him. If he's averaging 15, of course, that's great. But then what are you getting from your other players? So 15 points per game. I think we'll see him at maybe 3 or 4 assists. The big thing I'm looking at is the field goal percentage and his turnover count, because we saw in summer league it took a minute. It took probably a half against the Portland Trailblazers for him to kind of adjust to the speed of the game. So if he's not forcing, trying to drive to the rim or trying to feed passes where there's no lane, I think I'm going to be looking at those turnover numbers for sure.
Absolutely. So let's get on to Jalen Duren and his ceiling as a player. Like, I think he'll be similar to Dwight Howard. I'm not saying he's going to be a multiple-time defensive player of the year, but he'll have a real impact on the defensive end, especially when he adjusts to the NBA. And I believe offensively, he's going to be a force, just like Dwight was when he gets accustomed to the NBA. But what do you guys think of Jalen Duren's ceiling as a player? Is he closer to a Dwight Howard or somebody else? And Anthony, I'll let you take this one over.
Comparing him to Dwight, I'm not even going to touch that, because like when Dwight was like a high draft pick, like I love it. I love that you have the balls to put that out there, but I don't. Like, I seriously don't. I look at Robert Williams from Boston as more of a kind of his ceiling, and I think he could possibly be more because I have seen him like working out with his trainer, and that mid-range jump shot looks really pure and clean. Like, if he can develop that, then I think he's probably going to be your starting center. There's just so much to like with him. I mean, having a rim runner, a guy that can protect the rim, catch lobs. I mean, you arguably have two of the better passers in the NBA in Killian Hayes and Cade Cunningham on your team. So, I mean, you saw what Cade did with Marvin Bagley when he got some sort of a lob threat. Now he's going to have Jalen Duren. Like, it's going to be a really fun, explosive offense with him in it.
Yeah, and I wasn't like, again, I'm not saying like prime taking over. You got the greatest defensive team ever with Dwight Howard. I'm not saying Jalen Duren's like that, but I do see, I don't know. It's just like when he first got drafted and you saw him playing summer, you're like, holy crap, this dude is a man child. Like, he was built to play basketball. Like, he has a great body. You can tell he cares about taking care of himself and getting the most out of his athletic abilities. You can see that with Duren. And similar to with Dwight Howard. And I don't know. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to say he's a multiple-time defensive player of the year, but I definitely see some similarities between their games. But Mike, what do you see? What do you think about what is Jalen Duren's ceiling to you?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's interesting because we saw Dwayne Casey compare him to Sean Kemp.
Yeah.
Jalen Rose has been comparing him to, he could be Bam Adebayo.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna go DeAndre Jordan with a mid-range shot.
Okay.
I think he has the athleticism. Like we said, he's a lob threat. He can block shots. That matchup between him and Chet Holmgren in the NCAA tournament was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work out in his favor, but I think what we're going to see, especially when we saw in Summer League, I think that first play is going to be kind of what we see going forward with the Pistons. We saw Ivy come off the screen. He had the ball. He penetrated. He threw the lob, and Duren was there to just dunk it down. And we're going to see that a lot with I think pretty much all of Detroit's guards, whether it's Cade, whether it's Killian, whether it's Jaden. They all have that ability to kind of feed him down low. And then as far as defensively, I think we should slow down on Defensive Player of the Year since he hasn't even played his first NBA game yet. But
I did say I did not think he would win multiple times, so I'm going to make that very clear too. But how many? I mean, do you think you're saying DeAndre Jordan? What are the chances we get to see one of those dunks that DeAndre Jordan had on Brandon Knight from Jalen Duren? Like, what are the odds of him just doing some kind of poster?
Isn't that a sore spot for Pistons fans?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is. I mean, but I'm
Lance is a sicko.
So what are the odds though that we see Jalen Duren put some guard on a poster like that? Though, maybe we get a highlight that's so good we're watching it 10 years from now. What do you think the odds are of that happening for Jalen Duren?
I think it's possible. I think if he catches the right person with the right height slipping, I think he'll have one of his greater dunks probably this year. I think we'll see a couple of posters from him this season, actually.
If you could pick the player that Jalen Duren posterizes this year, what player are you guys picking?
I could see Vucevic. He doesn't really play any defense. I mean, Saban's tried to get him like 3 times. You know Saban's going to be like, yo, bro, just give me the ball. Because Saban's a funny dude. Like, I don't know if you like ever met him, Lance, but Saban is a really funny guy. Like, he's a jokester for sure.
I like that. I like to hear that about him. Mike, you got a player that you would want to see Jalen Duran posterize?
Not that I would want to see. Who do I think is possible? Maybe Brook Lopez.
I could see that.
That's a good one. I like that.
That might be an easy one but I'll say Brook Lopez.
I would love to see Jalen Duran posterize like Kevin Durant. I think that would be amazing. Kyrie Irving, that would be amazing as well. And dude, I think it'd be really cool if like Brandon Knight was playing a game and Jalen Duran posterized him too. I think that would be incredible in itself. Yeah, I know. I was a big Brandon Knight fan. I'm going to say it. They would be awesome. So yeah, Jalen Duran's, we got Bruce Stealing, we got who he's going to posterize. So yeah, we'll get into the final topic because each week we pick a Detroit Piston and predict their season averages. This week we're talking Alec Burks and Kelly Olynyk. Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you first. What do you think? Give me Alec Burks' stat lines in points, rebounds, and assists.
Okay. I wrote it down, so I came prepared. 10 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, and I'll throw 42% from 3.
He's a sniper for sure.
Yeah. And he shot 41%, but I think his opportunities will probably be fewer than he had in New York just because of the heavy guard backcourt lineup. But I'll definitely say he shoots 42%.
Oh, he's going to get a lot of open look if teams continue to double team Cade. A lot of open looks. But Anthony, What about you? What are Alec Burks' stat lines this season?
I think his average is actually going to go up. I think he's going to lead the team in attempts personally, because I from watching Coach Casey and his rotations, I know he's just going to milk that cow until it's dried up. Like, because he's just going to throw him like kind of like how we had Wayne Ellington from a few years ago. I mean, Wayne Ellington was shooting like 8-9 threes a game. I think he'll have a similar role. I think you're probably going to see like 13 points, maybe 2 rebounds, maybe an assist and a half a game. I just think he's going to have a lot of curls, a lot of dribble handoffs. I think it's going to be a thing where him and Kelly Olynyk are just going to run dribble handoffs like consistently until someone figures it out.
Interesting. I personally think he's going to average 9 points, 2 rebounds, and maybe 1 assist. I don't think we're going to get to see – I think he's just going to be more of a catch-and-shoot player. I know he played a little point guard for the New York Knicks, and I believe at certain times he played a little point guard for him. I think he did the same for Utah. I just think with all the guard depth the Pistons have at the 1, you're not going to really have to see him take over ball handling duties or trying to create for others. So I just don't think the assist numbers will be that high. I think he'll be more of a 3-and-D type of player, where he's just catching, shooting, playing defense. But 9 points, what did I say, 2 rebounds and 1 assist. That's what I think Alec Burks' stat line will be this season. But what about Kelly Olynyk, Mike? What do you think his stat line will be this year?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where he falls in the rotation as well. I got him down for 6 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 35% from 3.
Ooh. What made you want to say the 6 points and the 3 rebounds? Like, what's
I kind of think his role is going to be, I don't want to say diminished, but we'll see less of him. I think they're going to want to throw Durant out there and get him as much experience as possible. We're obviously going to see Marvin Bagley. We're obviously going to see Isaiah Stewart. So I think his opportunities might be few and far between, but I could be wrong. Again, I'm the new guy, and I'm just coming in pretty much with what I've seen and what I'm predicting. But yeah.
So do you expect to see Jalen Duran early in the season? Because I kind of think he will – I think he'll be on the bench to start the season, and you'll probably see him a little bit in G League before we actually see him play some big minutes for Detroit.
Yeah, that's a really good prediction. I think so as well, especially depending on how training camp goes. But you never know.
True. Anthony, what about you? Give me Kelly O's, your favorite player's stat line.
I think he's going to play 30 games and he gets traded. I'll just have that out there. I've been saying it. I thought he was going to get traded on draft night, personally. I thought he was going to get the Mason Plumlee treatment, but he didn't. So I think Mike's not far off. I think he's probably going to have like maybe, let's say like 8 points a game, maybe 4 rebounds, and shoot around 40% from three. I don't really think he's going to have a big role. I think the Pistons are going full on youth movement with Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren. And you have to remember, you have Nerlens Noel too.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. I've heard some other reporters that do cover the Pistons say he's not playing at all. So I don't know how true that is.
Wow, that's interesting because, okay, yeah, we won't get into Nerlens Noel. But for Kelly Olynyk, I think I'm kind of with you guys. I think he averages around 8 points per game. I would say 3 or 4 rebounds and, probably an assist maybe. But, 3-point shooting, I think it's going to be probably around like 37%. Like he's a pretty decent shooter, and he's going to get a lot more open looks, especially with the growth of Cade, more eyes being on Sadiq and Jaden Ivey, and, Isaiah Stewart attempting more threes. There's going to be a lot of open looks for Kelly Olynyk. But I do think you're both right. It depends on like what his role is, like how many minutes he's going to get to play, because the Pistons very well could go with the youth movement and just throw those guys to the Wolves early. But yeah, Kelly Olynyk, I'm going to say 8, 3 or 4 rebounds and about assist a game, for Kelly Olynyk. I don't think it's going to be, and I'd be more shocked if he crossed over double digits for the season than him averaging less points this season. But that is the podcast. We normally do a Q&A at the end with the people watching and the people listening and everything. I don't know if you can stay for that, Mike, or if you want to or whatever. It's your choice. But if you have to go, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to doing it again. It's always fun to talk basketball. And I'm glad I got an opportunity to come on.
Yeah, I hope we made it worth your time for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure, man. And like, if you ever need anything, like, I have a couple connections. Like I could probably put you in a connection with that Casey Athena chick if you want. Like do an interview with the Rico Hines. I work at Woodward Sports too. Like if you ever want to go on the show, I know all the producers. I can get you an interview set up like that. So,
oh man, yeah, that would be really cool.
I got you, man. I mean, Rod's in our studio all the damn time. So like I see him all the time. So like as soon as I saw that like he wasn't covering the news, I was like, okay, I gotta get Mike on because I'm giving you 3 texts this week. Yo, how come Rod isn't writing about the Pistons anymore? I'm like,
wow.
I know, it's just like they didn't really hype it up. They should have hyped it up more.
I do want to say that I wouldn't be in this position without Rod Beard, and I got some pretty big shoes to fill. Mm-hmm. Shout out to him. He's actually my editor, so we're still working in tandem. He's helped me the entire way, but definitely got to give a big shout out to Rod.
Yeah.
Has he given you any advice on covering the Pistons? Like kind of like, maybe anything, that you should know about, maybe like the arena or something about the players or some of the staff that work for the team? Like what kind of advice has he given you, covering the Pistons?
It's interesting because he definitely complimented the Pistons, said they're like the best team to work with across the NBA. As far as their PR, as coaching staff, front office. So that was pretty encouraging. He also told me that as far as the arena goes, I'm kind of it's going to be a new experience for me. So I got to figure out how to get into the arena, where the media room is, just the things like that. And also like just being on the road for what's going to be the majority of my time. Half the season really, but he told me to have fun with it and take care of myself because it's a long season and it's a grind. But at the end of the day, we're getting paid to write and watch basketball. And like, what's better than that?
Honestly, like I'm sure all the beat writers will welcome him in, like, from like James to Amari to all those guys out there. I'm sure they'll help you out a ton. I mean, they're probably some of my favorite people to interact with. Like I love James Edwards. I mean, like listen to his podcast like every week. Like I just love it. I think what's really unique about the Pistons PR is they're so inviting and so nice. Like they're not going to tell you no on an interview. Like I remember a couple of years ago, I got to do media day, and they were really cool. Like the only thing that I did get in trouble is I asked Blake too many questions and they got mad. But I mean, other than that, I mean, like honestly, like I think the Pistons are just such a cool organization, and we're really happy that you're excited for the job. And I think a lot of Pistons fans are going to be really excited to read your articles, and they do need to subscribe to the Free Press, which it's so cheap, you guys. Like honestly, like I have my subscription, but I haven't read an article in probably like 3 months. but that's just because I'm so busy right now. But I mean, like, it's cheap. You guys should subscribe because I know there's some exclusive content you'll probably have this season.
Yeah, for sure. And subscribe to the Detroit News.
For sure. It's so worth it. Was it like $1 or $2? It's something.
Yeah. We got a deal going on right now. 2 years for $22. Like, you can't beat that. You spend $22 going out for a meal. So
I literally spent that for dinner tonight. Like, honestly.
Exactly. But no, I definitely did want to shout out James Nomari. And also Corey. He's for M Live. So I'm really gonna be excited to kind of like just interact with those guys on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, I used to work with Corey at Woodward Sports, so I know him very well. Really good dude. Funny dude, too.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, man, again, thank you for coming on. I'm excited to read more of your stuff. I'm excited that you're covering the beat and you got the job you wanted, man. I'm excited for you to be here in Detroit doing this. And again, I can't say enough. Thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
No problem, Mike. Take care.
Yeah, take care.